You might have heard the phrase, nothing was evil in the beginning, and even in the case of Morgoth, previously Melkor, it was true. While perhaps never being what one would describe as a noble being, Morgoth was not created evil. But by the time he entered Arda, Morgoth already had bad intentions and was well on his way down the path of becoming the greatest evil the world had ever seen. But why? In this video, we look at why Morgoth became evil, and whether any of it was justified. The Morgoth that is present during most of the Silmarillion is fairly one-dimensional. He seeks to corrupt, destroy, or dominate all things in Arda that do not source from himself. He is indiscriminate in how he deals out violence. He is deceitful to the point of self-delusion. He has no appreciation for the natural world. He has no real vision for the future, other than one where everything is ruined amid ashes. While Tolkien himself would be reluctant to consider someone irredeemably evil, Morgoth was about as close as you could get. So, what went wrong? Or was he just defective from the very start? We can find some of the answers in the Ainulindalë, the first section of the Silmarillion that deals with the creation of Ea, the universe, and the origins of the Ainur. It's an extremely important part of the story, but it's not exactly light reading, and considering it's the first section of the Silmarillion, it probably contributes to why the Silmarillion has a reputation as a difficult read. So bear with me here as I summarise Morgoth's part in it. In the beginning, Iluvatar, God, who dwells in the Timeless Halls, a place separate from the universe, creates the Ainur, the Valar, and the Maiar. Morgoth's power is said to be the greatest among them. His main powers deal with heat and cold, frost and fire, but he's also mentioned as having a share in the knowledge and powers of all of the other Valar. His role in Iluvatar's vision isn't exactly clear. One note from Myths Transformed tells us that Morgoth's role was to create, devise, and begin, and Manwë's role was to improve, carry out, and complete. This implies that perhaps Morgoth was intended to be something of a workhorse for the Valar, hence why he was given more power, someone that could lay the foundation from which the other Valar would build from. Unfortunately, Morgoth never got this far before falling to evil. And a side note, Morgoth was not created to be evil or to be some agent of chaos. Iluvatar's creations all have free will, so Morgoth's fall was due to his own choices. Now, Iluvatar is described as being omniscient, so we could certainly see the future in which Morgoth did turn to evil, but that doesn't mean that Morgoth had to turn evil. This has led to people wondering why Iluvatar even created him, or whether he set Morgoth up to fail. All I can say is that this is a very philosophical topic, and I'm not sure I'm well equipped enough to answer it. Certainly not in this video anyway. So how did it go wrong? While we don't know Morgoth's inner monologue, we do know that before the creation of the universe he spent a lot of time in the Void. The reason for this is that he was searching for the flame imperishable, essentially the secret source of true creation. Because he was impatient with the nothingness of the Void, he wanted to begin filling it with his own creations. Unfortunately for Morgoth, the flame imperishable is always with Iluvatar, and I'm not sure one can even steal it. Without the flame imperishable, one cannot create true life. We see this with Aule when he first creates the dwarves. They're almost automatons, extensions of his own will. They don't have any of their own until Iluvatar gives it to them. So while Aule later proved that having the desire to create, or even going behind Iluvatar's back, weren't necessarily bad traits, Morgoth was already showing other worrying signs. First was the impatience at Iluvatar's perceived inaction, but more importantly, his individualism. This became more prominent in later events. The Ainur were supposed to work together. Many of them were paired or had friends. Morgoth was alone and chose to be that way. He wasn't a team player. The reason for this is unknown. Once again, it might be because he was given more power and saw the others as beneath him. And another side note, just because I know someone might mention this. The Void in Tolkien's Legendarium is just nothingness. It's the place outside the universe, that's it. It's not a corrupting or Cthulhu-esque force like it is in other fantasy settings such as Warcraft or Riftwar, so while there's no doubt that Morgoth was influenced by his time spent in the Void, he was not corrupted by it, and it was not responsible for him turning to evil. When Iluvatar finally does get around to creating the music of the Ainur, which was the creation of the universe, everything is going well at first, but as the first theme progresses, Morgoth's individualism comes to light, and instead of acting in harmony with the other Aina, he tries to interweave in a way that would increase his own power and glory. His chords end up clashing with those of the other Aina, causing dismay amongst them, and the theme becomes a discordant raging storm. When Iluvatar starts the second theme, Morgoth doubles down and once again overpowers the voices of the other Aina. He's not interested in harmony, he's interested in what he wants. But Morgoth's efforts are for naught. Iluvatar creates the third theme, which is basically a new theme which then combines with the violence of the second theme. With that, Iluvatar lays the verbal smackdown on Morgoth, telling him that despite his vast power, he can't do anything to the theme that doesn't already have its source in Iluvatar, and that anything that he does is ultimately all part of Iluvatar's plan, even if Morgoth doesn't know it. This is a defining moment in the development of Morgoth's character. He wants to play God, but ultimately, he's just another piece in Iluvatar's design, and even though he's the most powerful piece, he can't break the game. Morgoth feels ashamed, but more importantly, he feels angry because he can't have what he truly wants. The culmination of the third theme creates the universe and Arda within it. Iluvatar shows glimpses of his vision to the Aina. This includes a habitable world and the coming of the children of Iluvatar, elves and men. At this point, Arda is a barren rock, so the role of the Aina is to prepare this world for them. At first, even Morgoth wants to help in this preparation, but in reality, he's already lying to himself. If he cannot truly create things of his own, then he at least wants to carve out his dominion within creation for himself. He wants to dominate the children of Iluvatar, he wants subjects and servants, he wants to be called Lord. He makes this clear when the Aina arrive on Arda, declaring to Manwë, "This shall be my own kingdom, and I name it unto myself." Manwë rejects this claim, and there is strife between Morgoth and the other Aina. It starts with Morgoth meddling in the labours of others, he then withdraws for a while, but seeing the great works of the Valar progressing, he returns and begins a war of full-blown destruction. The Valar would raise mountains, Morgoth would level them. The Valar would create oceans, Morgoth would spill them. Everything not of Morgoth's design would be destroyed. And that's basically the way it goes for the rest of Morgoth's time in Arda. Instead of being the creator he was supposed to be, Morgoth became a destroyer. The two lamps, the two trees. When elves and men awoke, he attempted to dominate and corrupt them, and if he was unable to, he instead resolved to destroy them. He did things out of pure spite, even if it was illogical or ultimately detrimental to his own cause. Tolkien tells us that if Morgoth had been successful in the First Age, the destruction would not have stopped, and when Morgoth ran out of enemies to destroy, he would have destroyed his own servants, and then he would have tried to destroy the very world itself, something he wasn't capable of doing. I think this paragraph from the Valaquenta in the Silmarillion puts it perfectly. From splendour he fell through arrogance to contempt for all things save himself, a spirit wasteful and pitiless. Understanding he turned to subtlety in perverting to his own will all that he would use, until he became a liar without shame. He began with the desire of light, but when he could not possess it for himself alone, he descended through fire and wrath into a great burning, down into darkness. And darkness he used most in his evil works upon Arda, and filled it with fear for all living things. So to summarise, why did Morgoth become evil? Well, as I've stated in the past, it was basically just one giant temper tantrum. Unlike the other Valar, Morgoth wanted to play a bigger role than the part that was given to him, which is crazy because he already had the most power. He wanted to be the true, only source of creation, and maybe at first he had good intentions, but ultimately he just wanted to create things that he could dominate and call his subjects, and when even that was denied to him, he resolved to burn it all down. In his mind, if he couldn't have it all, then no one should. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it or at least found it interesting. While I love a good villain origin story where they had good intentions, or that something tragic happened to them, or that they faced great injustice, or that they kind of had a point, I also appreciate a villain origin story where the bad guy is just a bad guy, and Morgoth is definitely that. He truly is a piece of shit that had no right to become such an asshole. Sauron and Saruman were kind of the same, but at least they had a delusion where they believed they could improve things. Anyway, cheers, farewell, and remember, it was honestly taking me like 10 minutes to think of something to say at the end of the video, so I'm just going to share that instead.